Okay, here we are today on December 7th, 2016. My name is Lisette Coly. I'm the president of Parapsychology Foundation, and I'm really very happy to be here with Dr. Carlos S. Alvarado and Dr. Nancy L. Zingrone, who have been intimately involved in the workings of the foundation for many years, wearing very many different hats at different times. So I wanted to talk to them a little bit about, since they know what life was in back of the screen of Parapsychology Foundation, how they came to interface with the foundation and work for us and with us and come full circle and be back together again. So let me ask you, what was your first, meeting up with the foundation?
Well, I think my first contact with the foundation was via correspondence. I have first I wrote to get information about the programs.
How old were you? Were you a teen or in graduate school, or at what point?
I must have been 19 or 20 years old or something like that. And I wanted to know what you were doing, your publications, and things like that. And I got some brochures and some information. I subscribed to everything I could. Yeah. And started buying your monographs and some of the proceedings.
That's good.
Yeah. And then slowly started reading and learning more about the foundation.
And this is while you were growing up in Puerto Rico?
Yeah.
And was there a lot of material available to you then, or?
Not really. I had to form my own library. That's why I started subscribing to your magazines, like the Parapsychology Review. Was buying the monographs. I didn't really have an access to any library that had much. There was a few old books, but
so it was really
much.
The foundation being a clearinghouse for information that drew you to the organization.
That's
first.
true. And through the foundation, especially reading the review, I started learning about what was happening all around, not only in the United States, but in Europe and countries like Japan and Israel and all kinds of places that I found it fascinating. And every time I will get the publication, the review, I will immediately open and go to the news and
that's
study.
Very gratifying to learn, since I used to be the low man on the totem pole when I arrived at the foundation, and I would be cutting up galleys and trying to put the mock-up of and who does that anymore?
And with wax.
Yes, exactly, and with cuffs so that I wouldn't be all cut up. So what about you, Nancy? What was your
The first time was John Bisaham, my professor, and my undergraduate professor. I took a parapsychology class with him in 1972, and he gave all of us a list of everybody that we should be writing, and I think I'm the only one in the class that did it. I spent $91 on monographs in my first order in 1972. Yes. I was 21, and my parents were really furious because I had to ask them for rent money. But I did that, and I subscribed to the Parapsychology Review and just followed everything all the time. So, and then later asked for a grant.
Exactly.
And you said no, because I only had a BA, and I registered for graduate school about two months later and started the following fall.
Wow, that's great. I mean, that's wonderful for the whole field of parapsychology.
Kick-started my career.
Oh, well, wonderful. That's something else for the foundation to be proud of. Well, now we know how you were first introduced to the Parapsychology Foundation, but tell me, academically and professionally, how did you craft your career in parapsychology? What were your particular areas of expertise? So where did you go from there after your first brush with PF?
Well, after I started reading everything I could get my hands on, especially the PF material, I continue to educate myself by reading not only the recent but the old literature. I wanted to really understand what the field was all about. And one thing led to another, and eventually I went to California to study with John Palmer in a master's degree program in parapsychology that had been developed there, that the foundation had supported. Yeah. So I benefited from that. I spent some time there and went back to Puerto Rico when I finished. And I have been sent by the University of Puerto Rico with all my expenses paid, with the idea that I will have a job when I will get back.
Right.
They were developing a parapsychology lab inside the
Oh, I didn't
university,
realize that.
and everything was,
Yeah.
very positive. But as it happens in all these places, especially universities that are state universities that are involved
Different
with politics,
administration came in.
different administration came out, and to make the story short,
No
I just
room
got
at
a
the end.
letter saying you're about to finish. That's good, but sorry,
Sorry.
we cannot offer a position. I came back to Puerto Rico and worked in other things, and soon after I get a letter from Ian Stevenson, seeing if I was interested in a position as a research assistant that he had. I had been recommended by John Palmer from the
JFK.
JFK program, and he flew me over there, interviewed me, and the next day he offered me the position, and it was great for me because that kind of opened the doors. I had to leave Puerto Rico, but that was very positive for me. I was going to be here in the States, in kind of in the mainstream of things. So I did that. And while I was there, good things happened. I met Nancy,
That's the best
and
thing. that happened
yeah,
to you.
that was by far the best thing.
There
And
you go. I'm helping you out.
I'm glad that's on record, by the way. Yeah, and I continue working in different areas. You asked about specific areas of interest. For me, one of them was out-of-body experiences. From early on, I did my master's thesis on out-of-body experiences and did some work. I did several articles that I started publishing when I was much younger. And I also was writing about the history of the field, something that I have been doing a lot more recently.
You're very well known for that now.
Yeah,
in
I've
the
become
field of
known for
stories.
that because I'm fascinated by the old materials, the old researchers, not only here in the States, but also from Europe and many other places. One of the things that I decided I was going to do was to devote a lot of my time writing about previous eras, previous researchers, to inform people, because it's so hard to sometimes find those materials that I thought, well, that's a contribution I can make. I can put all this material there, and I will make it easier for others to come and find the resources.
Exactly. Uncover them
and
and bring them to light.
yeah.
For sure.
So that's the short story.
Well, that's
basically.
quite a saga. But let's talk about Nancy. Nancy, how did you get into all this?
Well,
apart from reading Para Review.
My professor, the same guy at Mundelein College, we did senior theses to get honors in psychology, and one of the monographs I got from you guys was the one by Yvonne Duplessis.
Oh, the
about
paranormal perception of color.
Right. So
Still available. at Parapsychology.
my senior thesis for the undergraduate school was a dermo-optic experiment. And John was a heck of a experimentalist, so I had to have blind people in my study and sighted people, and we went down to the Sherman Williams plant, the paint
company?
plant.
Yeah.
They gave us
All the paint
all
strips.
the paint chips, and we knew exactly how many nanometers or whatever. We knew exactly what the color was. They gave us gray stuff for the room, so the light wasn't changing the way the color would be perceived, and we had negative results. Didn't find any ESP, but the blind people really loved being blindfolded.
Okay, yeah.
Because everybody had to do the same thing. And then I got an A for the project. As I was leaving Mundelein, Brenda Dunn, who was the laboratory manager at the Princeton laboratory, came in and was a student at John Bisaha's as well. And he now says, whenever anybody mentions parapsychology to him, that myself and Brenda are his
legacy.
contributions. Yeah, we're his legacy to the field. So from there, he was constantly pushing at me. I was in Chicago. I went off to get a master's first we tried to get a master's of parapsychology at Mundelein, and it didn't fly. And then that was where I was, Mundelein College. And then I went to work, or I found out about another master's in paranormal studies in the sociology department at another Chicago university. That got lost on the way to accreditation, and I think you were involved in helping try to get that program going, and there was an administration glitch. It didn't happen. So I ended up at Northern Illinois University doing higher education, but I had two psych professors there who were very interested in the field. So I ended up doing a lot of different.
So you're more in the experimental vein.
Yeah, very
than,
much
than
so.
Carlos,
Very
per
much
se.
so. And
Yeah.
Bisaha was in the background saying, you've got to go to Ryan, you've got to go to the research center and take the summer study program. You've got to do that, got to do that, got to do that. And finally, in 1982, I moved to North Carolina for a different reason. Got known as this body in the library all the time, met the researchers of the time, and Marilyn Schlitz, who's very well known in the field now, left for another laboratory, and I was in the right place at the right time. They gave me the job. I became a research fellow with the stipulation from Dr. Ramakrishna Rao that following summer I would finally take the summer study program in 1983.
Interesting.
And in the spring of that year, I wanted to go to a conference in Charlottesville to get to know other researchers and so on.
Is this Cupid at this point?
Yeah, I didn't know
I'm
about
afraid so.
I didn't know about this guy, but my coworkers did, and they kept saying when you get up there you should meet Carlos Alvarado, and they actually wrote his coworkers and said make sure she meets Carlos Alvarado. So I went to that conference, and that was how we met. And I was a stone cold Rhinian experimentalist. I had no interest whatsoever in spontaneous cases. I had had some experiences myself, very minor, but I wasn't interested. I certainly wasn't interested in mediumship or any of those things. And then I met him. And
The road not taken,
the
or
road
a
not-
deviation,
yeah,
or somewhat,
yeah,
or
and-
just widened.
Yeah, widened.
widened, yeah.
Also the best thing that ever happened to me. So my idea of how the field should work changed a lot from Carlos, and the folks at the Rhine put me in charge of being his host when he came down to teach in the 1983 summer study program. So our relationship started while I was
work
driving him
obligation
around.
Yeah, for sure.
I was driving him around Durham, and we got to be a couple. So that's how it started.
I
And then
remember
from
that.
there on, we were doing a lot of research together. I even spent time getting lent out to Dr. Stevenson's laboratory so that we could work on some projects together.
Uh-huh. Now, in the interim, then, did you ever attend any of Parapsychology Foundation conferences, or I believe you presented in one? Did you?
Yeah, I presented in the 1984
In New Orleans.
convention in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I
That
think it
was
was
what,
called Current Trends,
Current Trends.
Uh-huh.
Inside
Uh-huh.
Research.
Uh-huh.
And I presented an overview of the research and out-of-body experiences, mainly the survey literature. And it was one of the first really very formal presentations that I made.
Were you nervous?
Yeah, I was
You
nervous.
could not tell it, I don't think.
So people tell me that I look
Seems so
relaxed and
relaxed.
all that, but it was a big thing. It was a PF conference, and there were people there that I knew were
Now, is that
older
the-
than I was.
Is
and-
that the first time that you met Eileen Coley, my mother? Or I know I was there, but had you met us before?
I met
or-
her before, and you also in one of the PA conventions.
In Fairleigh Dickinson, I think, in 83.
Yeah, I remember
we went
you-
to that together.
You guys were sitting there, and we decided saying, "Hey, yeah, let's go and say hello." So we went in, and you were very cordial. You stood up, and we were shaking hands, and we had a very short talk, and so that was the first contact. Later on, we dropped by New York.
Yeah, we were, because Carlos was a voting member at the American Society for Psychical Research, and we made sure that we had a day.
And that was on 71st Street.
70, yeah, you were on 71st
Okay.
Street, they were over on 76, and we had a hotel room over there, came across the park, and spent the whole afternoon at the foundation. And Wayne Norman was helping us in the library, and then I think your father came down
yes.
and was talking to us, and then he brought us upstairs, and we were ushered into Mrs. C's office,
In
and
her
you were
sanctum.
sitting there, and we were terrified. And we're sitting on the chairs, and you're sitting on, I think it was a couch you had,
Exactly, yeah.
and the first thing out of her mouth was, "Oh, we've been watching you," and we were both like,
Say what?
"What does that mean?"
Wow,
We've been watching you, so it was really lovely. It was
we
very
would tend to
encouraging.
we would tend to keep our eye on first of bright sparks and possible people that would carry the banner and really make their contribution, because everybody's interested in parapsychology, but they would waft away
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
So we were always trying to get good people to stick
Yeah.
around.
Well,
so.
and it was a lot of fun that trip too, because we went over to that bookstore. What was it, Samuel Weiser?
Oh, Samuel.
We
Weiser,
walked in the
yeah.
door because he
On
grew up in
Broadway.
Puerto Rico. He would have to order his books from those guys. So we walked in the door, and he walked up to the counter and said, "Hi, I'm Carlos Alvarado," and the place went crazy. The people behind the counter wanted to shake his hand.
Because he'd been such
He
a,
had like
a good
50
customer.
Yeah,
So
he
I
had
have been
so
buying
many cards.
hundreds of dollars.
Yeah. Over it since he was 17 years old. So for many years. So that was a lot of fun.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So you presented in a conference, and I
In
believe you did
84.
too, right?
91, yeah,
And what
in
was
91.
your conference? Was in
That
Dublin,
was the
no?
Women in Parapsychology in
Women in
Dublin.
Parapsychology.
Yeah. And it was also our honeymoon because we had gotten
Yeah.
married and hadn't been able to take a honeymoon. So
Uh-huh.
we took the money from the wedding, and he came along to Dublin, and
I think
he
he was one of the few males. Not that it was.
There
I'm
were
very
2 or
disappointed
3,
in that
I
because
think. Yeah.
I don't
there
know
were
why
few,
the
few
males
men. That's
Yeah.
thought
true.
that this was a woman thing, and it was
Yeah.
by no means
Yeah.
meant to
There
be.
were very few men.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Really.
remember that.
And Garrett
For sure.
Hovelman, to his credit, was one of
Garrett
the men
Hovelman.
who came on purpose to that
Hans.
conference.
Yes.
Mission.
Hans,
Misha, yeah.
Misho, yeah, and that was the conference with Anjum Kilji, who
Yes,
and,
Beverly
and Je-
Rubik was there.
Marilyn
uh,
Schlitz.
Ruth Inga Hines and
Susan
and,
Blackmore before she
That's right.
left the field
And
or
Beverly,
whatever.
was it Rubik?
Yes,
Rubik.
Ruth Inga Hines.
Uh-huh.
Oh, and Rhea White, of course.
And
And
Rhea
Rhea,
White.
yes.
Yeah.
Of
yeah,
course, yeah, for
That was a
sure.
wonderful conference.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, we enjoyed that. And then I remember we had our first argument with you guys at the desk when we were checking out because we wanted to pay for these little experiences that we were having for our honeymoon, like having a high
Pardon
tea
me?
and all this. And
oh.
you guys wanted to pay for that, and we wouldn't let you
We
pay for
ordered
it.
tea and
Yeah.
A high tea.
A high
cookies
tea,
and
yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
little
Yeah.
pies and things like
Yeah.
that.
That's
So it was a
cute.
wonderful
That's
conference
cute.
on about 12 levels.
Well, then, what did you think of you got to see the relationship between my mother and I,
Yeah.
both professionally and personally. So, what did you think of that combination? Because we were rather dissimilar, no?
Yeah.
Or perhaps not. I don't
Well,
know.
for
What
me,
do you think?
For me, it was a wonderful kind of reflection because I'm kind of built like you're built, and my mother was a little tiny Irish lady like Mrs. Coly. In fact, in '95, when Carlos was the president of the PA, and I was the program chairperson, everybody thought she was Mrs. Coly. And about halfway through
I
the
remember
conference,
that.
she came up to me and said, "Who the hell is Mrs. Coly?"
Oh, that's funny.
I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
She said, "These people keep asking me for grants. I don't know." And I keep saying, "Write the office." And I
Oh,
was like, "Well,
that's so
that
funny.
works." Yeah.
That's so funny.
So, but it
Yeah.
was wonderful to see. I came from a family with a family business, and it's sometimes very difficult to maneuver those two relationships,
That's true.
both professionally and personally. And you guys were amazing. You
But
were
I
just
thought it worked
good
out
at
really, really nice. I always
Yeah.
remember, especially the first few times
Yeah,
that I saw
yeah.
you,
Before the
both-
curtain was pulled apart.
you both in action. You know, I also remember you as being very exuberant and full of ideas and presenting, you know, a lot of them. And Mrs. C was basically looking at you and at us and thinking
Very
about
ki-
it.
yeah.
And then we gave our opinions and all that. And then at the end, she will come and say, well, I think that's a good idea, but part of this, I disagree because we had tried that before. Blah. And eventually, you know, something will come out that was a very nice mix of all your ideas and the new
And the reality of what we could
and the realities
do.
of what could be done and what may not work and all that. And that's something that we always like because it
Yeah.
was a very
Open, give and take
energetic,
sort of.
Yeah,
open,
yeah,
give
very
and,
much
give and
so.
take.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she
Mm.
would make the decision, and then later on you more. And it was a very.
But she was
nice
also very
environment.
open-minded, and
Yeah.
she never tried to shut down your ideas, or she just tried to bring other
Well, what
perspectives.
did she used to
you
say?
know.
Well, let's skip ahead to when you came on
Children.
staff, and we'll talk about that when
Yeah,
we'd have staff.
we'd pitch we'd have ideas, we'd have conversations together, and then we'd get Mrs. C ready to sit and listen to us, usually in the journal room where the conference table
Exactly
was,
right.
and we'd all make the pitch, and you would tie it up, and then there would be this long pause, and she'd say, "Now, children," and we were all in our 50s. "Now, children," and then she'd lay out what was possible, what was feasible, what was a good idea, why this might not be right that way, better this way, and just
Yeah.
astonishing.
She was a
intellect.
steady hand, wasn't
Yeah,
she?
yeah,
She
Yeah.
really was
great.
a quiet
Yeah.
force. I always thought she used to say that Garrett, who of course she didn't experience firsthand, was very much a whirlwind and just a force of nature. But whirlwinds are very messy and very difficult to clean up after.
Yeah.
And I think it took my mother, Mrs. C, as we called her, because when you're working with the family,
Yeah.
or Mistress C, when my
We always
father,
called my mom Mrs.
yeah,
Z.
Mrs. C,
Yeah.
that it needed somebody after Garrett in her nice practical shoes to come in, and she really put the foundation on a platform, I think, and organized it and gave it substance. Not that Garrett wasn't, of course, so essential to start the ball rolling and attract people, but to actually formulate the structure that we were all able to draw on, which I'm still drawing on, was
and that's hard to
invaluable.
do. I mean, our family's business ended in the third generation, in the second generation, and at the time, I did a little bit of research on the history of family businesses because my mother was feeling not so good that she couldn't carry it forward another generation. And it's very, very unusual for family businesses of any kind to get to the second generation, much less get successfully to the third generation and beyond.
It's called being stubborn.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
So that's a huge accomplishment.
Let's talk about, so you obviously continued your professional careers. You've both been past presidents twice, I think each of you,
Both of us,
of the Parapsychological Association. So you've certainly got your creds apart from your work with Parapsychology Foundation. Now, how did you wind up in the PF boat from Puerto Rico? Talk to me about who came up with that bright idea.
Somebody named Lisette Coly, who was, were you the executive director in '98 or VP maybe, vice president?
76, I became the vice president.
Okay, so
Yeah,
And
we're
when
the
Mrs.
VIP.
C was getting a little less, more tired, and age was, then I took the title later on of executive director.
Yeah, so it was like 97, 98, something like that, and you called us, I think, and asked about publishing because you knew that I had a little tiny publishing house that we did a few things with. And I felt like, we both felt very grateful to the foundation for all the things you've done for us over the years and just for the relationship and for what you've done for the field. And I sent you a 10-page letter about everything I knew. I just did a dump.
On how to.
Yeah, everything I knew about publishing in that era. And you called up and said, how would you like to do it for me?
Because I said, I can't figure this out. Yeah. No,
and we
for sure.
started consulting on the new IJP
That's true.
and on all the
bring
pamphlets.
Heal Express.
Yeah,
Right.
And all those projects. And then I think about
And it was a while of doing
like
things.
a year later or so, maybe a year or two
And then
later.
one day when you called, I think you brought the idea of us moving to New York.
And you
How did that?
You said you
I
wouldn't come
think
up to New York.
I think I was talking to you, and
Would you?
Nancy was on my side. And when the idea came, I thought, yeah. Almost immediately.
We said yes
And I think I mentioned
I
it to
think we were on
Nancy.
extensions.
Were we on extensions?
I think we
I
were
don't
on
remember that.
extensions.
But look at Nancy, and Nancy was going.
That's funny.
So-
Because on the flip side, we were out, and I remember the discussions we were in Greenport before the library moved out, but we had a home out there. And Mrs. C and I were going back and forth. Dare we ask I think they would be a fit. But to ask somebody to pull up from Puerto Rico, and the foundation's finances have always been, since Mrs. Bolton died in 76, there's been no influx of cash. So do we dare even suggest uprooting them and coming to the city?
And we were grateful that
we-
you were very honest at the beginning, because that very, very first conversation when it got serious was that you had 18 months worth of money, and that was all we could expect. So we knew we were taking a flyer on, coming up to New York and having to go back to Puerto Rico 18 months later.
Well, we invited you because we thought perhaps together we'd be able to turn the corner.
And we sure tried. We worked really hard.
No, definitely you did.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Mrs. C and I, and it was more Mrs. C left the decision somewhat to me at that point because I had youth on my side, which is no longer the case. But in any case, we could have continued the work of the foundation very quietly, slowed down to and string out the life of the organization, but quietly as a backwater and blah, blah, blah. Or we could, roll the dice, spend some money, try and revamp the organization, catch somebody's interest, and hopefully not go out in a blaze of glory, which almost happened. But that was the background as to why we thought you would be so useful in trying to do that with us.
Yeah.
And in point of fact, it's been a very good, was a very good decision, because I think we all have a meeting of the mind apart of where we see parapsychology itself, the field where we want it to go, but also how to reach the public apart from academia. So it's been a very, I know on
pretty
our
much
side,
all on the same page.
which is really something.
Yeah.
So all right, so you
And for 20 years.
for 20 years.
'Cause-
So when did you come up? When did you actually come up?
We came up in
Wow.
2000. Well, we first came up in the spring of whatever was the year your dad died, 1999.
99.
We came up in the spring for a trial visit.
So you met my dad, did you?
Oh, yes.
Robert
Yeah.
Coly, who was
Yeah,
the treasurer.
Yeah.
And we have met him before on a visit
Yeah,
to the library. I
and we
remember I
met
was
him
in the
conferences
library
as well.
Yeah.
and I was reading something in French.
Well, he was French
I
born.
forget
and-
what it was.
Yeah.
And he can notice that, and he came to me and said, "You read French?" And I said, "Yeah, not perfect French, but I can read some of it." I said, "I read French. I'm French." And he kind of smiled and kind of shook my hand and left. You know,
For sure.
And
it was
when
a big
when we
surprise.
came for the visit, we were in your parents' apartment, and he was with the little kids, and
Meaning
Carlos,
my children.
your children who are
Their
now
yeah,
adults,
grown.
and Carlos and I were standing chatting with them, and then I think we had to go someplace or something, so you guys were going to take us away, and he said to Carlos, "So you want to work with all these women?" And
He did?
Yes.
Yeah, he said something like, "I pity you,
Yeah.
all these women around."
Shook his hand. Good luck.
Good luck. Yeah, for
And I
sure.
said, "Thanks." I started getting worried. No.
That's funny.
And then we came up actually in the summer of 2000, and we were living there from the summer of 2000 till February of 2003.
Yeah.
So almost 3 years.
Just a closing note about my father, and not because he's my father. He had other claims to fame for that, but I think that Mrs. C and I get all the good press, as it were, about the foundation. But if it hadn't been him with the purse strings, saying, "Girls, are you crazy? A grant for what? Kuna Indians and wooden boats." This is what he was always teasing Bob Vandercastle that he had trouble swallowing
That
the
one.
mahogany boat to go and dig it for the Kuna.
Yeah.
So, and what are these guys saying when we go around visiting different labs and this and that? But so the foundation and we who've continued in the foundation really owe him a debt of gratitude as well.
Absolutely.
Watching those those.
Yeah, because your last big influx of Bolton
It
money
stopped
was
in
in
1976. We don't
76.
have,
There you go.
and we've been managing to keep
Yeah.
on. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know how in God's name,
Yeah.
but maybe it was meant to be.
I hope so.
You were instrumental in this resurgence of the foundation in 2000, right? The rededication for our 50th anniversary.
Yeah.
And God, we had the PA came to town, right?
In
The PA
2001.
convention.
You know,
August of 01.
And we were busy
we
checking out
hosted.
hotels and
Yeah.
this and that for our.
Yeah, we
and
went
they,
everywhere.
They were very generous because they allowed us to celebrate our 50th anniversary at the PA. And you were were you the president elect or the president?
I was the president at the
Elect.
time.
Oh,
No,
you
I
were
was
the
the
president
president.
then.
Yeah.
Which
And
is
we
a-
had to, and they gave us permission to lose money because New York was so
So
expensive.
expensive.
Yeah, and so we ameliorated that by the anniversary cocktail party that the Parapsychology Foundation
Yeah, we kicked
threw.
that in. Yeah.
Mrs. Coly got the Career Achievement Award at
Stanley Krippner gave her, yeah.
at the banquet, and then we had a after conference open house at the Parapsychology
That's right,
Foundation.
at the library on
Yeah,
71st
so
Street,
we were
which
able
was-
to make the length of the conference without it all falling on the Parapsychological Association, which was very generous of
Those
the
were
PA.
those were good times
Yeah.
because
Yeah, it was very
we
nice
were
times.
full of all kinds of
Yeah.
excitement, enthusiasm, and what we could do.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it was a month before 9/11.
Just before 9/11.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it
yes.
sort of deflated not only the PF balloon, but
lots
the,
of
the cities.
not-for-profits around the city, and
Yeah.
restaurants and hotels closed, and lots of things happened.
Exactly.
Yeah, it
that
was
was
a
scary
different-
to share that. I know
Yeah.
whenever the anniversary comes around, and we always call each other because you
Yeah.
go through that. So for our 50th anniversary, we were busy rededicating and reshaping the foundation's programs. So what did we do for our 50th? We had a bunch of irons in the fire, didn't we?
Yep.
I mean, we inaugurated the Perspectives lecture series?
That started actually earlier. You started in 98, I think, with the Perspectives lectures. So they were already in full swing. Once a month, we had somebody in. We had switched, after we came up from more popular speakers to more scientific speakers. And the number of people who were coming to the lectures started to really grow.
We had to move, right?
We had
out
to
of the
move.
library.
Yeah,
We had to move to the
What
New
was
York
it?
Academy of
Sciences.
Sciences.
They never realized who they were letting speak
No.
behind the New
And,
York
and
Academy.
we were getting little refugees from some more straight scientific stuff who would come up and listen to our talk.
That was
true.
a nice place.
That was a nice place.
And we were videotaping them
We
and
were
trying to sell them
videotaping.
to create an
Yep.
income stream, but also to
Yep.
disseminate the information.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And doing workshops.
Well, the
Weekend
Lyceum,
workshops.
did we think of the Lyceum? That
Yep.
was the
Yep.
pedagogical arm, the education,
Yeah.
and of course you two were the teachers, the professors that
Yeah.
were giving these different
And we were
classes.
filming all of those too. People could buy the weekend tapes, and if they couldn't come in live, they could buy the tapes and watch the workshops. So we did that as well.
We
Yeah.
realized that we were really serving two constituencies in those years, right? And we still do. The public at large, who really doesn't have much accessible information,
Yeah.
good quality information, and of course academia, which we always
Yeah.
supported. So we tried, didn't we, to make pamphlet series of introductory materials, the pamphlets for beginning
newcomers
students.
to the field. Yeah.
And and then of course we had our International Journal of Parapsychology, but unfortunately that had to go the way of the wind when
Yeah, we had
finances
2
started.
volumes before the
2 or 3, before
downturn
we
came.
had the downturn.
Yeah.
But you were very busy, of course, with your love of the library, right? You were busy with bibliographies.
48 of them. I
48.
think.
Yes, I compiled
Finding-
Yeah.
a lot of bibliographies on different topics,
Right.
starting with recommended books for an introductory.
They were all thematic
overviews.
bibliographies, right?
Yeah.
Like on
Yeah. There was one about
psychokinesis,
healing, about mediumship, about ESP in the lab,
Biography.
and ESP cases, biographies of psychic and mediums, history of psychical research, and many, many other topics. And basically what I will do is I will do whatever I could from memory, and then I will go to the catalog, or if I wanted to really be inspired, as I did frequently when I was there, I will stand in front of the books, and
Yeah.
I will just
Speak to me.
move around, almost like I was absorbing them.
Uh-huh.
And I will take notes whenever I saw a book. I will take notes, and the bibliography will have all the complete reference, author, year, title, publisher, and place. But I also put the call number,
Which was
because
very
it,
useful.
it was
for
designed
students.
to help people to come and use the PF library.
Well, and because the library had been professionally maintained all those years,
Yes, for sure.
it was Dewey Decimal and
Yeah.
with a little bit of a tweak for the category that they usually dump all parapsychology, and we had that more parsed out. So people could take those bibliographies and go to any other Dewey Decimal library and find the materials.
And now that all that work is online,
Yeah.
you can find it in
On the
the
PF Lyceum
Exactly.
website.
in our
for
webpage
sure.
there.
Yeah.
Because
So-
your title in those days was a large one, right? It was
Yes.
what was it? The chairman
Of domestic and international affairs.
program
programs.
affairs. That's a different
Programs.
thing.
Programs.
Programs. And Nancy, you had
Programs.
many hats.
I
You
was-
were the director of,
Yeah, I was the director of publications, but I also managed sales and did invoicing.
and you taught me how to do email.
Yeah, I taught you how to do email, and I taught you how to do
I
Word.
think I inherited. You
That's
told
right.
me I inherited that from Alan Angoff.
Yeah.
That's
He
right.
had that
He
title.
had that title.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
And then we
Yeah.
were involved in conferences later on.
Yes,
For-
and figuring out the conferences
Yeah.
when we did mediumship
Mhm.
in
Yeah.
conference programs, and you
Yeah.
were the series editor for the monograph
the
series.
monographs.
Because we brought back some new
Yeah,
monographs,
the parapsychological
Yeah.
monographs.
and we launched Helix
we
Books.
launched Helix Press, and we
And-
had Tony Cornell's investigating the paranormal and some of
Eileen Garrett's Adventures in the
Adventures in
Supernormal,
the Supernormal.
Awareness.
yeah
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were
Roll
busy
Beyond the
little bees
Sentences.
until
Yeah,
until
the
the
sentences.
air was deflated
in
out
the
of our
downturn.
balloon. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
So that meant that after how many years were you on staff
We-
and with us?
We were only on
Actually.
site for about just about 3 years, I think, because we left. We came in July of 2000, but we'd been consulting before that, and then we left in February of 2003 to open up a virtual office in Charlottesville. So
Yes.
The work
that-
continued. Just
yeah,
The work continued,
yeah, but
that's
we
true.
were independent contractors, and we had a post office box that said Parapsychology Foundation Sales, publication and sales, and we were doing the work from a home office originally, and then the Division of Perceptual Studies let us
have
do
some
work for
space.
you out of an office in their new location in Charlottesville, Virginia. So we
Uh-huh.
did that for a number of years.
Yeah.
And then I think it was 2006, the economics were really creeping up on us. You'd already sold
We sold the building in
Yeah.
2004,
Yeah.
but we managed to put all the books, it was probably about 11,000 books or 12,000 books at that point, volumes. We put them into storage, and I was out in Greenport where I had that home and saw a space that was the same exact money of the rental of the warehouse for the rental of the library.
Right, I remember that.
And I thought, well, books, it's costing me the same amount of money, books in boxes, or books on shelves, even if it's in Greenport. And of course, that seemed to be, we opened the library, and you came up for that, I remember.
We came up 4 times, I think, before
Yes, but
we
you were
started
there
doing
for
once a
the
year.
launch of
For the launch,
library, and everybody
Yeah.
now seems to think that I was so prescient, and what a wonderful idea to go to Greenport, because Greenport is one of the
It's a
10
beautiful
picturesque
town.
cities of the what do you call it?
Very
pleasant.
charming
And
town.
so
Yeah.
we don't tell them too much about how it was. We sort of fell into that with our boxes.
Well, and it was a great remodel because your
Yeah.
husband was involved in the remodel, and the shelves were
So
all
the rare
built.
books are in one
Yeah,
place, and the
yeah.
conference room, periodicals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We never thought that anything could be better than 71st Street, and then the door opened onto
Opened.
the new library. and it was
Really.
like, oh my God.
I know.
Yeah.
It's just too bad that it's so far away from you at this
Yeah,
point.
at this point it is.
But
Yeah.
you went on. So I was busy trying to take 12,000 books out of boxes to put on shelves, and to keep the foundation going, and worrying really substantively at that point for finances, which weren't good to begin with before we even got to the big 2008 downturn.
Yeah.
What were you doing? What have you been doing? You were
Well, at that point, we both had assistant professor of research appointments at the University of Virginia in the Division of Perceptual Studies, which is known as a voluntary position, meaning we were self-funded. And essentially, our self-funding initially was the contract that we had with you, and then our first Bial grant with the Fundação Bial.
And you ran that
we
through
ran
PF.
that through the Parapsychology Foundation. The second one we ran through the University of Virginia. And when we went into that new office space, that was our deal. It had to be okay with them that we were going to be working for Parapsychology Foundation in the office. So that's what we did, which is how Natasha Chistis got involved.
That's how you.
Yeah, because when we did the Charlottesville Mediumship Conference, she
was
called
working
me up.
the table, right?
Yeah, she called me up 2 weeks ahead and said, I'm interested. I don't have a lot of money. Let me work the registration table for you. I said yes. She came to the conference. We had 130 people who came in that very snowy January
Yes,
weekend.
the weather was terrible.
Yeah, so we had a good load of people who came in. You and I were running around doing something, and I left her at the desk and said, I'm going to come back in about 5 minutes and tell you how to start this. And it ended up being 10 minutes. By the time I got back, she had the conference open, she had the registration table set up, and she had already registered about 50 people. So she stayed working through our little consulting company, and then now
and
as
then
a volunteer.
she did a lot of the
cataloging
of the library and this and that.
Yeah, from a distance.
Which is very fortuitous.
Yeah, definitely.
So after there, you wound up for a stint in Virginia Beach, right?
Our grants were winding down, and I took a position as the Director of Academic and Administrative Affairs at Atlantic University, which is part of Edgar Casey's Association for Research and Enlightenment. And Carlos was brought in as the scholar in residence. So I was being paid. He was kind of a semi-volunteer position, so he could continue doing his research and so on. And at that point, we were volunteering occasionally for you. You know,
you
a
had
few
your hands
hours.
full,
A few hours a month or every couple of months, something like that.
Well, you never left me totally in the lurch.
Absolutely
no,
not.
that's for sure.
Absolutely not. Yeah. And then we were there about 29 months, I think, and moved back down here to North Carolina. And we started volunteering a bit more because we had more time. And then you were gracious enough to help support one of our online conferences.
The very first one, the was the first Paramount. You had to explain what massively
open online course
and the computer.
Yeah,
for sure.
And from there,
the foundation's finances got slightly better.
Yeah.
And so now 50...
So we got another phone call saying,
another phone call.
Hey,
would
guys,
you like
to...
Exactly.
And I thought,
let's reset the
yes,
redo.
and I looked at Nancy, and she said, yes. It's the same as in 2000.
And history repeated itself.
So here we are at the 15 years later.
Yep.
The 65th.
The 65th
anniversary. So
anniversary.
what have we been doing?
Oh,
we were
my
like old
goodness.
war horses. We
went to Utrecht.
That's yes, that's
Oh, that's
right.
an important
2008.
development. Yes.
Now that was really exciting.
Yeah.
It was difficult to get it off the ground.
Oh boy, but it was great.
But it was
But
really
it
wonderful,
worked, yeah.
being that the Utrecht one was really a landmark
1953,
conference, the
landmark,
first of the
yeah.
foundation's conferences in
Yeah.
'53. So to be able to go back to the very same salon, the very same
The Senate
offices,
Saal.
thanks
Beautiful.
to the HJBF Dutch
Yeah.
Foundation
Yeah.
under the auspices of Wim Kramer.
And we were in the same hotel.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
very strange to walk in those footsteps.
Yeah.
That was really a high point, I think,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
And
foundation.
Carlos was the organizer of the academic side of it, the substantive side of it, and the lineup was extremely good. And then we used the PF model where everybody in the audience had been invited
Yes.
as an observer, and that we did all together, trying to make sure we represented all of the nations that had research going on. So the group that was assembled from young researchers to
Yeah, we really tried to
To
craft
older
that,
ones
didn't we?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
there was
Different
quite a
countries.
list that we could have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had a few people that had been at the very first one. We had
Yes.
Donald J.
Yeah.
West. And,
Right.
DJ
and
West
and
Bill Roll.
Bill
Yeah,
Roll.
yeah.
Yeah. Now
Yeah.
that was really.
So it
high
was
point,
it was like a wonderful balance between
sure.
the first Utrecht and the second one.
for sure.
So that was an
So
extremely
what are we
good
going to get up
experience.
to now? Let's see.
Anything.
Well, let's see. Now you're still teaching me the computer, because what have we done now? We've just revamped the websites
yes.
again. But now
Well,
we're mobile ready.
Yes.
Or
We're
whatever that
putting the
means.
foundation on the
You
web.
can watch us on your
Online.
phone.
So
And now, instead of
Wider
having
reach.
real-time conferences, which we don't necessarily say that, never say never,
Yeah.
right? But certainly we can reach
Well, we
with
have-
technology.
Yeah,
We
we
can
have
reach-
real-time conferences, but not face-to-face.
Yeah,
But
Yeah,
we
not
will have
face-to-face.
face-to-face
Yeah.
in the future, we hope.
Yeah.
But and now it's a big schedule. You have the PF Lyceum Academy on the
The online
social
academy will
media
be launching
teaching platform.
in
Yeah.
2017.
And we've got a variety of things going on. We've got the book expos that are twice a year. We
oh,
bring
yes, yes.
authors of very credible popular books and academic books in
Always
the field.
remembering that we do serve the two
Yeah,
constituencies, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
and
sure.
have that mix, and then they talk about their books, and we have people who are there real time, and then we're converting those to
And
videos.
you're going to start
for,
teaching again, right?
Going to
With
start
the
teaching
with
again.
the Lyceum
Yeah,
again.
Mhm,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That will be good.
Yeah, and Perspectives lectures are coming back,
Exactly.
and we have a YouTube channel with over 60 videos.
Well, now
Oh,
let's
yes,
talk about
that's
the
very
YouTube
important.
channel, because
Yeah.
obviously that's why you see our smiling faces, because now we're in love with film.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anybody reads anymore. Well, they do,
Well, they
but
do,
not
but-
academically, and it's so
Yeah.
expensive to,
Yeah.
to create the product and then market it. And if
Yeah.
you don't find your audience, you're stuck.
Yeah,
So now, and I think the younger generation wants
they want it
instant stuff, and
instantly.
they want to
yeah.
know what's going on. So
Yeah.
now we have, as you say, the YouTube
Yep.
channel, and we'll be bringing different playlists
Yep.
online,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
We have all kinds of ideas about that.
Well,
so-
and I think because of the
We're-
foundation's history going all the way back to the first conference in '53, wasn't it? I think
Mm.
there's film from so many activities.
Yeah.
There's audio from so many activities that we're bringing out this huge legacy of what was done by the foundation in the past, and that's going up on YouTube. And then we're doing a lot of new stuff as well.
Yeah, so we also have a lot of new materials that we're putting online. You know, all these forums that we have been doing, courses.
Oh, the International Affiliate
The-
Program.
Yes,
yes.
Now, we
That's
did
another
that
thing,
in the
yeah.
50th.
Yep.
We started that, but
Mhm.
now we're
Yep.
moving along with the internet. We've had
Yeah.
one forum already with the
Yep.
international affiliates,
Yep.
and there's
Mhm.
one going to be scheduled in 2017.
Yeah, the affiliates is a program that we have representatives of the foundation in different countries. So, you know, in Japan,
26
in
countries.
Brazil, in
Because we really are
in the
interested in the
UK.
international.
Yep.
It's not just a
Yeah.
English-speaking endeavor
Yeah,
here, right? It's
exactly.
really
and that's not only to put out the word about the work that we do. It's also for us to be able to get information and to get advice from all those members.
for sure.
You know,
Their
like
input
recently
is-
we have been asking for advice about new people in the field that they know from each of their own countries, and I have been receiving emails from several of the affiliates giving us names, some of them of people completely new that we had
which
never
is great. We
heard
need
about.
more fodder.
Yeah.
We need
Yeah, new
And a
faces.
lot of them are new students or people that just got their PhDs, people that are new in different ways in the field. But we can get those names thanks to the affiliates. So that's a way of extending the PF around the world, this affiliate program.
We have 26 countries, 27 affiliates, including Dean Radin here in the U.S., but so that's pretty good, I think.
Yeah.
And then we have
Yeah.
all our member organizations, that we're
organizations
trying,
as
always
well.
trying outreach to get more
Mhm.
people to
Mhm.
to see not what we're doing,
Yeah.
but what's out there,
Yeah.
and to push the field forward. Because as my mother used to say, we can't stop now
Right.
because we don't have the answers yet.
Yeah, no.
So there's plenty more to do.
Yep.
So I guess there's nothing much to add except before I sing, wish ourselves a happy birthday, right?
Yes.
And
Happy
also
62.
to say to you two that apart from, there have been many people working with the foundation over the years, but there have been few who have stuck in so many different generations, and we sort of grew up together, and now we're a little bit long in the tooth, but hopefully we'll be together a long while more.
Hope
We
so.
have
Yes.
more work to do. We're
Yeah.
all very stubborn.
And we can turn around and say to Anna and all the young
And yes,
people,
there is a fourth
children.
generation. There's a fourth generation. Poor Anastasia
Yeah.
Jamalis, my
so
daughter.
when she's 56, we can,
exactly,
from
exactly.
vaulted ages, we can say.
So we plan to
Children.
do this again. I don't know about 15 years more. How about we aim for the 75?
I
all
love
of
that
us?
idea.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think
a
that's
deal?
a great idea. 10 years.
So
We'll
other
hang
than
in
that-
there and
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary. Okay. Till next time. Thank you.
and the ride continues.
That's right.